Imagine opening your eyes on what seems like a perfectly normal morning. The sunlight is shining through your window. The birds are singing. Everything feels ordinary until you notice something strange. Your phone has no new messages, no notifications, no missed calls, nothing. You shrug it off and walk to the window. But the moment you look outside, your heart stops. The streets are completely empty. No cars, no buses, no people, no sound, just silence. Not the peaceful kind, the terrifying kind. Because overnight, 8 billion people have disappeared. And somehow, you're the last human alive on Earth. At first, your brain refuses to believe it. Maybe it's too early. Maybe everyone is inside. Maybe today is some strange holiday. You quickly get dressed and rush outside. The front door swings open. The air feels unusually still. There are cars parked exactly where their owners left them. Some still have their doors open. A bicycle lies in the middle of the road. Coffee sits untouched on outdoor cafe tables. Traffic lights continue switching from red to green to yellow for absolutely nobody. The city looks frozen in time, as if humanity simply vanished. In the blink of an eye, you begin shouting, "Hello, is anyone there?" Your voice echoes through empty buildings. No answer. You run through streets that were crowded just yesterday. Every apartment, every office, every store, empty. Televisions are still running. Food is still cooking in kitchens. Music still plays in abandoned shops. But there's not a single person left to hear it. The silence becomes louder than any noise you've ever experienced. Your first instinct is simple. Call someone. Anyone. You grab your phone. The network still works. You call your family. No answer. Friends. No answer. Emergency services. Nothing. Voicemail after voicemail. The internet is still online for now. You check social media. Millions of accounts. Billions of photos. Videos. Memories. But nobody is posting anymore. The entire internet suddenly feels like a digital ghost town. Frozen forever. At the exact second humanity disappeared. Fear slowly turns into panic. You jump into the nearest car. The keys are still inside. You drive across the city. Airports, empty. Hospitals, empty. Schools, empty. Police stations, empty. No matter where you go, the answer is always the same. Nothing. For the first time in human history, there isn't a single conversation happening anywhere on Earth. Not one. As the sun begins to set, you finally realize something horrifying. The lights you're seeing across the city won't stay on forever, because every power plant, every water system, every satellite was built to be operated by people. And now, there are none. The first day is over, but surviving tomorrow will be far more terrifying than surviving today. Because being the last human isn't the hardest part. It's watching civilization slowly die around you. The first night is almost impossible to survive. Not because something attacks you, but because the silence never ends. No distant traffic, no airplanes crossing the sky, no neighbors talking through the walls. Even the familiar hum of the city feels different for the first time in your life. Earth sounds almost empty. You barely sleep. Every tiny noise makes your heart race. A creaking door, a gust of wind, a falling object in the distance. Your mind keeps hoping. Maybe someone else is still alive. But morning arrives, and the silence is still there. The next challenge isn't loneliness. It's survival. Food isn't a problem, at least not yet. Supermarkets are packed with supplies. Warehouses are overflowing. Restaurants are filled with untouched meals. You could eat almost anything you want. But there's a problem. Electricity. Every refrigerator, every freezer, every cooling system depends on power. At first, everything still works because the electrical grid keeps running automatically. But power stations need engineers, fuel deliveries, maintenance. Without people, the countdown has already begun. Within days, different parts of the world begin losing electricity. Entire cities suddenly go dark. Traffic lights stop working. Street lights disappear one by one. Television stations go offline. Cell towers begin shutting down. Your phone becomes nothing more than a flashlight. The internet, the greatest invention in human history, slowly dies. Not because it was destroyed, but because nobody is left to keep it alive. For the first time in decades, the world becomes truly disconnected. Water is the next problem. When you turn on the faucet, clean water still flows. But not forever. Water treatment plants require workers around the clock. Pumps need electricity. Filters need maintenance. Chemicals need replacing. Eventually, the taps run dry. Finding clean drinking water becomes one of your biggest priorities. You begin collecting bottled water from abandoned stores. Rainwater becomes precious. Every single drop suddenly matters. Something humanity once took for granted has become priceless. As weeks pass, nature begins noticing something strange. The humans are gone. Dogs wander the streets, searching for owners who will never return. Cats quickly adapt, hunting on their own. Zoo animals face an uncertain fate. Some remain trapped inside enclosures. Others eventually escape into cities. Without traffic, without crowds, wildlife slowly starts reclaiming the world. Deer walk through neighborhoods. Foxes roam empty parking lots. Birds nest on abandoned skyscrapers. The planet begins healing itself, one silent day at a time. But the greatest danger isn't hunger. It isn't wild animals. It isn't even darkness. It's loneliness. Humans evolved to live together, to speak, to laugh, to argue, to share stories. Now, you haven't heard another human voice in weeks. You start talking to yourself, just to hear words. You leave the radio on, even though no one is broadcasting anymore. You replay old videos of your family. You read old text messages, again and again, not because you forgot them, but because they're all you have left. Months pass. Civilization continues to crumble. But something even bigger is about to happen. Without humans controlling factories, roads, cities, or the environment, Earth begins changing in ways nobody expected. And soon, the world will stop looking like it ever belonged to us, because nature is finally taking it back. Months have passed. You can barely remember what another human voice sounds like. The cities that once echoed with millions of people now belong to the wind. Every sunrise feels beautiful, but heartbreaking, because there's no one left to see it except you. And while you're struggling to survive, the Earth has already started moving on. Without cars, the air becomes cleaner every single day. The thick layer of pollution hanging over giant cities slowly fades away. For the first time in centuries, the night sky looks different. Millions of stars appear where only a few could once be seen. The Milky Way stretches across the darkness like a glowing river. You realize this is probably what the sky looked like before humans changed the planet. Ironically, the world has never looked more alive. Roads begin to crack. Tiny plants push through the concrete. Grass spreads across abandoned highways. Within a single year, small trees start growing between buildings. Without workers repairing roads, nature wastes no time reclaiming them. Rain slowly weakens bridges. Steel begins to rust. Glass shatters during storms. The cities that took hundreds of years to build start falling apart far faster than anyone imagined. Animals are everywhere now. Birds build nests inside shopping malls. Foxes sleep in abandoned schools. Wolves return to forests they avoided for generations. Even large predators slowly expand into places once dominated by humans. Some escaped zoo animals survive. Others don't. But overall, wildlife begins thriving. Without hunting, without traffic, without endless construction, Earth finally gets a chance to breathe. Then, another invisible countdown reaches zero. Satellites. Thousands of them still circle above the planet. But satellites aren't immortal. Without engineers correcting their orbits, many slowly drift off course. Some burn up harmlessly in Earth's atmosphere. Others stop transmitting forever. GPS disappears. Weather forecasts vanish. Television signals go silent. From space, Earth is no longer a connected civilization. It's simply a quiet blue planet. Years continue passing. Most skyscrapers remain standing, but many windows are broken. Flooded subway systems become underground rivers. Airports transform into endless fields of grass. Airplanes sit exactly where pilots left them. Their metal bodies slowly surrender to rust. The monuments humans built to last forever are losing their battle against time. Nature never rushes. It simply never stops. One evening, you climb to the roof of the tallest building you can find. You look across the horizon. No lights, no smoke, no traffic, just forests, slowly swallowing the city. You finally understand something humanity never wanted to admit. The Earth doesn't need us to survive. We needed Earth, not the other way around. But there's one final chapter left. Because while Earth has healed, you haven't. Years of complete isolation have changed you forever. And sooner or later, the last human story must come to an end. What happens when the final witness of humanity disappears? Years have passed. You no longer count the days. There are no calendars to follow, no birthdays to celebrate, no holidays, no reason to know what year it is. Time has become meaningless. The only thing that reminds you life is still moving is the sunrise and the sunset. Every single day, you wake up hoping to hear another human voice. Every single night, you fall asleep knowing you won't. At first, you fought to survive. You searched every city, every airport, every island, every underground bunker you could reach. You hoped someone, anyone, would answer. But after years of searching, the truth became impossible to deny. You really are the last human alive. Loneliness begins changing your mind. You start talking to empty rooms. You wave at security cameras, even though nobody is watching. Sometimes, you imagine hearing footsteps behind you. You turn around, but there's never anyone there. You replay old family videos over and over. Not because you've forgotten them, but because you're terrified you might. Every laugh, every smile, every voice, they become priceless. Because once your memory fades, humanity fades with it. Decades pass. Your hair turns gray. Your hands grow weaker. Climbing stairs becomes difficult. The cities around you have almost disappeared beneath forests. Trees grow through rooftops. Rivers flood abandoned streets. Animals roam freely where millions of people once lived. The world has become wild again. Beautiful, peaceful, untouched, almost as if humans were never here. One quiet evening, you sit on a hill overlooking what used to be a great city. The sun slowly sinks below the horizon. Birds fly across the orange sky. A gentle breeze moves through the trees. You smile, not because you're happy, but because you're grateful. Grateful that you witnessed the final chapter of human history. You close your eyes, and for the first time in years, you aren't afraid. Eventually, your heart beats. For the very last time, there are no doctors, no funitives, no headlines announcing the end. No one is there to remember your name. The final human simply becomes part of the earth. And with that, a story that lasted over 300,000 years comes to an end. But Earth doesn't stop. The oceans continue crashing against the shore. The forests continue growing. The seasons continue changing. Millions of species continue living their lives. The stars continue shining above a planet that no longer belongs to humanity. Because life always finds a way to continue, even without us. Maybe the greatest lesson isn't that humans could disappear. It's that every moment we spend together is incredibly precious. The voices we hear today, the people we love, the conversations we sometimes take for granted, they're what make humanity special. Because one day, every story ends. The question is, what story will we leave behind? If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to ToonTheory, and tell us in the comments. What would be the very first thing you do if you woke up as the last human on Earth? Until next time, keep wondering.